when I first watched your manifesto, my immediate thought was, "Oh my gosh, this guy gets it. This is exactly what I've been saying this whole time." I think that in the Great Meme War, in the War of Ideas, the right has kind of split into two groups. You've got like the populist, Christian nationalist, MAGA types, your Tucker Carlsons, your Nick Fuentes, your Donald Trump. But then you've also got this sort of vague Straussian, post-libertarian, techno-Nietzschean. It's this strange coalition with like Curtis Yarvin, Peter Thiel, Bronze Age pervert, and I think that your ideology and mine fit much more into the second group. That positive vision of the future is actually much more appealing than the trad LARP and the nostalgia. We're saying, technology is good, actually. Science is good. We will conquer the stars. We will colonize space.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Although I would not group Nick Fuentes in the former in the first category. I would group him in the second category, and I would not group Bronze Age pervert there. I think he's primarily an aesthetic guy. He's a Nietzschean guy. He's like, Bronze Age mindset. Basically, that's what he's advocating for. I don't think he aligns with right-wing progressivism, whereas Nick Fuentes calls himself a right-wing progressive, for example. There are good chances that he started calling himself that after watching my content, but I cannot
Really?
prove for
That's
sure.
cool.
Yeah,
That's cool. Hopefully that's true. Hopefully he's getting some good influence from you.
I would hope
Because
so.
I know that he definitely has some of the more populist takes at times. I mean, there's the famous clip where he's like,
"But I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth." Tucker Carlson says, "I have so many trust funds, I never have to work." Tucker went to a $45,000 per year private high school, then a $45,000 per year selective Ivy League school in New England. Tucker Carlson's daddy was a Reagan appointee. You were born to the Swanson family fortune and your daddy who ran the CIA. My dad didn't even graduate college. My dad worked for the tollway. His dad died of a drug overdose in the 70s. My mother's father was a garbage man in Chicago, and he committed suicide. He was a veteran of World War II. Who's the CIA cutout? Who's the poser? Who is America? I am America. Chicago is America. That's an American story. I didn't go to Yale Law School. I had to fight for everything I have. I didn't get a $1 million contract from Turning Point. I didn't get $20 million from Fox News. My daddy didn't get me a job in Arkansas.
I'm a poor guy from Chicago who doesn't come from an elite family. Whereas the right-wing progressive space tends to be a little bit more elitist because we understand that wealth correlates with IQ, for instance.
Well, actually, in my survey of multiple ideologies of my audience, the most common ideology was right-wing progressivism, and it did correlate with having come from an affluent background more than any other ideology. But at the same time, we also support meritocracy. And Nick Fuentes, he comes from a poor family, or maybe lower middle class, or just middle class family, but he rose up on himself due to meritocracy. And that's ultimately what I also believe in.
No, that's a great point. I mean, yeah, there's a fine line between we do believe in classes, but also we don't want some sort of hereditary aristocracy.
That's right.
We want people to
With
be able
no
to move
accountability.
into the upper
Yeah.
class.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
social mobility is crucial to a progressive, better society, and to human flourishing and prosperity and excellence in all regards. How do you think that your flavor of right-wing progressivism relates to like 20th century progressivism? Because
Yeah.
when a lot of people hear progressive, well, the normies just think, oh, that means liberal,
Yeah.
that means
Yeah.
leftist, whatever. But people who are a little more educated think about Teddy Roosevelt or
Yeah,
Woodrow
yeah.
Wilson.
So I would say that it is a spiritual successor to 20th century progressivism, but there are a few crucial corrections that I have made. So, first of all, the current version is based on systems theory. My big influencer was Alexander Bogdanov, who came up with technology, uh, which is like a generalized science. He was focused on organization theory, how like small units create large organizations and how these organizations function. Another big distinction is that the old progressives of the 20th century believed in like universal democracy, universal suffrage.
Right.
This version believes in like weighted democracy. It, I mean, it believes that everyone has a right to be a voter, but it also says that just like in the economics, you've got inequality in economics, so we should also have inequality in politics. People who know more about politics, who demonstrate better knowledge, should have more sway, just like people who are more economically productive have more sway on the market than people who are. With regards to the rest, like you've got scientific management, you've got efficiency, you've got like all these ideas that come from the book The Liberal Reformers by I think Thomas C. Leonard. My ideology exactly aligns with that. And also you've got nationalism, as you mentioned, Teddy Roosevelt and Woodrow Wilson. I think that a society, a progressive society, cannot be not nationalistic, because every society, every country is also in competition, not only with itself but also with other countries. And so you want to make sure that you have as much harmony as possible within your society, so that it is cohesive and it stands against its enemies, against its competitors, so that it functions as a like a collective consciousness.
Like a hive mind almost.
Yeah, almost like a
Like the
hive mind, but
Borg.
without 1984. So we have to like
Right.
balance out things. So it's the individual rights and collective spirit are not, at each other's throats.
Credit to P.F. Jung. He talked about, there's positive
Hmm.
dichotomies where both things are good, and you don't want to choose one or the other. You want both. And
Yeah,
one of those is masculinity and
yeah.
femininity, but another one is collectivism and individualism. You actually want both of those things. And I think that that's what America had, especially in like my grandparents' time, right? World War II and all that. People were incredibly individualistic and believed in pulling themselves up by the bootstraps, being a self-made man, but they also deeply cared about the collective nation in America and doing the scrap drives and the rubber drives to win, to beat the Nazis. So you can have both, and that's a very crucial insight. Another core part of classical progressivism is the environmentalist
Oh
aspect,
yes,
with Teddy
yes,
Roosevelt, of
yes.
course, being the national parks guy. How does that play into your version?
Yeah, as you mentioned, a good amount of American parks came from Teddy Roosevelt. With regards to me, I have this conception that the man must conquer and overcome the environment. But obviously, when you're overcoming to the environment to the extent that it causes mass extinctions, global warming, and it actively hurts yourself, then you probably should take greater care of the environment. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily buy into, for example, this like limited resources, or the idea that we'll run out of stuff. And I'm not like an exact environmentalist, but I also believe in common sense, and I think that the science is very clear that the way people have handled the environment in the past has culminated in very significant disturbances to life, and not just animal life. and there is a possibility that if the climate gets even worse, we'll have mass-scale climate migration from countries like Bangladesh. There's good chances that the entire country of Bangladesh, or at least the vast majority of it, could be underwater if the current trends would continue already this century. And so think where these people would end up.
Terrifying thought. Yeah, and there's lots of islands. I mean, in the West, in like America, global warming is kind of still an abstract issue. We can still afford, we can't, but we think we can still afford to waffle about, oh, is it really happening? Oh, what if it's actually a good thing? Because it's going to lead to more arable land. But then you go to some of the islands in the Pacific, and they're like planning out how they're going to get everyone off the island. They're like, yeah, like this place isn't going to exist pretty soon. So I was glad in your video you talked a little bit about like we might lose 4% of the global GDP to global warming. And I'm like, thank you. You know, finally a right-wing person who's not just sticking his head in the sand.
The environment is important. I think a lot of conservatives and right-wingers have this unnatural disgust reflex towards discussions of environmentalism because the left has co-opted it, right? And if it was not the case, then people
Definitely
would take it a lot more seriously. And actually, if you go back to discourses that were happening in the 19th century, protecting the environment was actually right-wing coded. And the arguments for its protection were often intertwined with traditionalist arguments.
Yeah, you had the whole blood and soil idea, right? The idea that, you know, you got to protect the forests of your fatherland because this is where your ancestors lived and died and their spirits are in the dirt. You know, you could take this to more of like a mystical, religious perspective or just like a nationalist perspective. To me, it seems quite natural for environmentalism to be right-wing coded because the right is about beautiful things, broadly speaking. That's one of our core values that defines us temperamentally, is the pursuit of beauty. And of course, nature is one of the most beautiful things. Now, I do agree with what you said earlier that, you know, the corrupted version of environmentalism is when they say, oh, we're going to run out of stuff and civilization's just going to come to a halt. We just have to go back to being anarcho-primitivist, right? The whole degrowth idea is stupid. We can actually sustain civilization through things like geothermal, nuclear power. We can continue to grow as a society while also protecting the environment. We just have to be a little less stupid about the way we go about it. You talked about the idea of weighted democracy, and I think another term you use is epistocracy. Do you want to explain how that works? What's the idea there?
Epistocracy is this idea that people who are knowledgeable should be in possession of politics as opposed to the lowest common denominator that is prone to populism, that is prone to tribalism, and that is prone to being systemically misinformed. So in my manifesto, I look at the many studies exploring the illiteracy rate of people, and I conclude that about 25% of people are not systemically misinformed, and because of that, you'd have about 25% of the population engaged in democracy. Now, that being said, if it's like 60% or 70%, as long as they pass the test that I'm advocating for to acquire their voting licenses, much like there's practitioner licenses, there's driver's licenses, I want to have a voting license for everybody. And so that is what epistocracy is in the context of right-wing progressivism, is giving the power of voting this license to people who are truly qualified for it.
This is a very good alternative to the monarchy that we've seen become popular. You look at, someone like Lavender, they've internalized the critiques of democracy, which are very real, which is that the masses don't know what they're talking about. Lots of them barely know what's going on in politics. They make terrible decisions. And that's all true. But then they say, okay, so we just should have like a hereditary ruler. Of course, the risk is that the hereditary ruler isn't guaranteed to be all that intelligent or capable. Whereas with epistocracy, it's a meritocratic system where you choose the best of the best and give them voting rights and let them manage society.
Most of all, a monarch is going to care for his own interests and the interests of his circle, and so you'll have corruption. Whereas, in the case where there's, like, for example, direct epistocratic democracy, like the market functions, you could say, as a direct democracy, you vote with your wallet, you wouldn't really have much of a precedent for corruption, because corruption occurs behind the shadows. It occurs when you can't get something legally, or you want to acquire something without necessarily acquiring it in open / legal ways. My system is fully open, and though it would strongly disincentivize against corruption.
Even if you have 10% of the population voting, you're not going to be able to get that 10% of people into a smoke-filled room together to negotiate, under the table deals.
Yeah.
It's just not possible. Someone's going to leak it. Whereas if you have, a king or like 20 aristocrats, then corruption is a very real danger.
Yes.
I've long advocated for epistocracy, for a very limited form of democracy. And I think this is kind of a common theme with the whole right-wing progressive space, is we don't necessarily want to reject what liberalism has to offer. We don't want to say, okay, no free markets, no democracy. We're like, actually, democracy, liberalism, the Western way, how Europe and America are arranged, has a lot going for it.
I view right-wing progressivism as the fulfillment of the Enlightenment, as like the true final stage of liberalism that was already headed in that direction in the 19th century. You've got thinkers like Herbert Spencer, you've got later thinkers, but then in the 20th century, especially in the second half of the 20th century, I think we started sliding into the wrong direction. We have taken the horizontal approach of liberalism as opposed to taking the vertical approach of liberalism, which is that you should use liberalism in order to enhance your society as opposed to equalize outcomes.
Right. Yeah, I liked something you said, that the leftists in the second half of the 20th century were actually reactionaries. They were stopping the progress of this liberal Enlightenment tradition, and they tried to paint themselves as, this is just the logical next step. First we emancipate the people from the king, then we emancipate the slaves. Now it's time to emancipate women and minorities, right? And of course, we want meritocracy, so we do want women and minorities to be able to rise in positions of power, but that's not actually what the left is about. It's about getting rid of meritocracy and having special privileges for these groups.
As I define progress in my manifesto, it's basically an organizational improvement from a lower state of organization to a higher one. So what does that mean? It means that an organization is more efficient relative to itself from the previous state and relative to other organizations in the same sphere. It is an increasing complexity, efficiency, basically fitness. Like, you've got organisms that are more fit, they're going to survive the battle of selection. So true progress is always vertical, like, an invention of a better AI model, right? Do you remember when the Chinese DeepSeek AI has shaken off the market completely, and a lot of people have switched to it? Well, now it's completely forgotten, because other AI models are doing great. Like, you've got, and also ChatGPT is getting forgotten, because you've got Claude and you've got Gemini AI, the Google model, and I would probably say Grok AI is distant third.
Yeah.
And if you look at how it's trading, would probably place it on the first spot. So there's always competition, and I feel that the right truly has this claim to progress and not the left, because the right understands hierarchy, and without hierarchy, you there is no way you could have qualitative change, and without a qualitative change, you can't have competition, which basically means you can't have selection, which then basically means that, like, that there is no change, because a change is selection. That's that. And when the left wants to minimize selection, when it wants to minimize competition, and when it wants to, like, even, like, as you said earlier, with this environmentalism stuff, the was it degrowth agenda? Well, that's open entropy. Like, I don't, understand. It's like basically saying we've invented, those
Yeah.
people that are complaining about AI all the time, right? It's like, well, we need safety. We need to, like, scale everything back. No, once it's going under the road and it's
Yeah.
proven to have a lot of positive benefits, there is no going back. And if you're going to go back, then other people would go forward. AI is, not only the United States has AI, China also has AI, other countries are catching up. So, like, you'll just put yourself behind others in terms of national competition.
Yeah. No, it's all about evolution and selection and competition, and yeah, that inevitably generates hierarchies. But those hierarchies are not fixed; they continue to climb higher and higher and higher.
And hierarchies, they fall, and hierarchies change, and sometimes even what the order of hierarchy constitution changes. Like, certain things were, especially in culture, were regarded as beneficial, but not anymore. For example, if you take a look at how the English vocabulary has recently been changing with influencers like Nick Fuentes, with influencers like Clavicular, this, like, 4chan Zoomer slang is now hip. It's now cool. People are adopting it. And yeah, 10 years ago, if I started speaking like Clavicular, I would have been made a fool, and nobody would want to talk with me. But now it's like, if you're not speaking like this, something's wrong with you.
Dude, it was so funny the other day at like my work where I work with adults, people in their 30s. They were talking about mogging
Yeah, yeah,
and
exactly.
maxing and all of these things. It's like, oh
Yeah.
no, I can't escape it. About the AI thing in particular, though, I'm refreshed to hear you say that, because there's a lot of anti-clanker sentiment going around. Everyone seems to hate the robots. They hate AI, and
Hmm.
they there's this argument that it's going to take people's jobs, and I always make the counter argument, like, so has every technology ever. That's the only way
Hmm.
progress happens, right? Because if a new technology comes along and takes jobs, that means that we've found a more efficient way to do that than human labor, and
Hmm.
that's something we should celebrate. It's something we should encourage, and it's 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 just a way to make things more and more efficient and
Yeah,
cheaper and cheaper.
I completely agree with you, but I do think that there will be a loss in employment because of AI, like there has not been before. We have already seen instances of, like, especially it impacts programmers the most. I thought about going into programming, but I chose political science. And now I'm thinking perhaps I made the right decision, because programmers have been impacted the worst. And when you've got, for example, you'll get like AI robots that will be like physically present in the real world. I think that a lot of the unskilled labor, and certainly truck drivers, certainly maybe pilots, and that's already skilled labor, we probably should implement some form of universal basic income, because not everybody is capable of like being an influencer or a day trader. A lot of people will have to suffice with something else. And like we're talking about maybe 20% of the population that could be impacted. So that is a lot of people.
Sure. Well, that's the Andrew Yang take that he's been saying for years, is that truck drivers are going to be replaced. It's just going to happen. And those unskilled workers might genuinely be in a place where there just are not jobs they can do. I don't know if I'm sold on that. I'm not sure if there really will be that bad of a job shortage that it will justify welfare, but I definitely understand where you're coming from. I think that something like that might at least be politically necessary. And it wouldn't be a huge cost, because at the end of the day, once we reach the hockey stick of AI, we're going to just see so much more efficiency and prices going so far down that you won't need to work nearly as much, and the
Yeah,
jobs
I
that
do
are
hope
left
so.
will be split over more people. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
and yeah, exactly. So I do expect the work day to be shortened even more,
Oh yeah.
and I also expect part-time jobs, and I expect like, so for example, right now or even 20 years ago, one person would be employed 40 hours a week doing one job. Now, well, not now, but in the soon near future, we would expect three people to like share the work hours, each working like 20 hours, 15 hours, 10 hours to fill this position, because the labor productivity has grown so much.
I think the most blackpilling thing that you talked about was that the global IQ is going to drop by like 10 points within our lifetime. And the thought of that is terrifying. I mean,
That assumes no technological intervention. So right now there's good positive news that there's this embryo selection technology that has already reached the markets. The prices for it are insane. It's like $10,000 per month for a subscription. So I can't afford it, but eventually the prices will go down, and a lot more people will have access to it. And I do hope eventually to make this technology free, or at least, well, not government subsidized, so that people of the lower classes, people who have lower IQs, get boost their children's IQ, so that crime, poverty, and other negative social traits aren't reproduced in the society. So I do expect it to like short term increase inequality, but long term level it down, because the lower classes would eventually need to catch up. But again, we're talking about a time frame of like one generation. Would probably be around 40 years by that point.
my fear is that you're going to have some sort of Christian
Yeah.
nationalist takeover where they ban this, right? Because the bioethics community, especially the Catholic bioethics community, is very staunchly opposed to this kind of thing, to IVF in
Yeah, yeah.
general, and to anything that tries to make better humans. It's instantly labeled as like,
Abortion. Yeah,
terrible and
it
scary.
is one of my big fears about it.
Yeah.
If it does come to that, it will be a major hit to the right, because again, you also want to ask yourself, who is going to use this technology. If the right is going to basically say, no, we're not going to be using that because like that's abortion, you're killing the embryos, or you're messing with God's plan, well, guess who's going to use it? The people who don't believe in the things that you believe. And so in 20 years, in 30 years, when they're genetically modified babies grow up, they're going to take all the positions of power, and you're going to be left behind.
They're gonna mog you, dude.
Yeah, they'll mug you out of existence.
Right. It's frustrating, man. It's like standing on the shore as there's a tsunami rolling in, and you want to stop the tsunami, and someone's like, God's plan, I don't know, man. Like, maybe you just shouldn't do that because of this, like, philosophy paper I read in First Things. And, the tsunami of massive IQ drops and total, genetic collapse of the human race is just, like, gonna destroy our civilization and destroy everything beautiful and destroy the rights and destroy Christian civilization. So it's a self-destructive moral hangup, and we gotta do something about it. I think that we really just have to impress on people the importance of IQ and the danger of IQ falling, and how that's going to make everything stop working, whether it's airports, colleges, politics. Every institution will get worse, more dysfunctional, more chaotic, hurt our lives, make our lives worse. A little bit of transhumanism is the only way forward.
Intuitively, I don't think people really understand the importance of the IQ. I feel like a lot of how IQ has been weaponized, I guess, in this discourse is like only concerning racial differences without necessarily looking into individual differences. Like there's this conception that white people would always have an IQ of 100, and that's basically set in stone. But well, first of all, that's not even true, by the way. So if you look at Europe, the average white IQ there is 96. And if we look at actually white American IQ, there is good evidence that it's higher than 100, that it's 101. And so that makes Americans have 5 IQ points higher than Europeans, and within Europe there is also large difference. Like in the south of Europe, you've got around 90. In the Eastern Europe, you've got like 96, 97. Only Northwestern Europe has an IQ that's 1 point lower than the American one. And now I think it is the white American one. It's recent proxy analysis that I have conducted with PISA scores, and they correlate with IQ at 0.9. We already have seen drops, and Germany's IQ is now 98, according to the recent analysis, whereas 20 years ago it was 100. Of course, most of it is due to immigration, but a good portion of it is like natural dysgenics. And that's why I'm certain that it's natural dysgenics, because if you take a look at Sweden, their fertility rate is not dysgenic, and they haven't had such a drop of IQ like Germany has, despite also getting a lot of migrants.
What do you mean when you say their fertility rate is not dysgenic?
Yeah, so the Swedish fertility rate and also Finnish fertility rate, the fertility rate of the lower classes and the higher classes is equal. And in some cases, the higher classes, they have higher fertility rate than the lower classes. And, that's a paradox, because in the rest of Europe, it's the opposite.
Right. That's interesting. Do you have any theories on why it might be that way?
I actually have no idea. No. I try to think about it, and I didn't come to a conclusion. And neither has Emil Kierkegaard. And if Emil Kierkegaard hasn't come to a conclusion, then I mean, there's no way I can.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's definitely this kind of, oh, we just have to keep out the immigrants and that will solve all our problems mentality. And well, immigration is certainly the most immediate danger to Western civilization. You also have to get working on the fact that we are getting stupider. We, the native population, are getting worse at things. And for multiple reasons. Not only the genetic, there's also the social media brain rot and people spending all this time scrolling and the education system collapsing. So yeah, like we have to address those internal problems. And there's a temptation to just say like, oh, Europeans are we're just the best. And then you go walk through a trailer park in Alabama, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, and there's some third world conditions right
Or
here.
West Virginia.
Right, or West Virginia. Multiple times you quoted George Soros, and I thought it was pretty funny. You would go back and forth between quoting like Steve Saylor and then like George Soros of all people, who's probably like the biggest boogeyman of the right. Is he's Jewish. Of course, I'm a big fan of the high IQ Ashkenazi elites, but a lot of people see Soros as the ultimate enemy, and he's definitely pushed for some bad things, is my understanding. But you seem to take his idea of the open society, which I suppose is really Karl Popper's idea, and kind of use it to your own purposes. Where do you see the value in that?
I'm looking at systemic level. I'm looking at into like I'm doing a general system level analysis. I'm looking at what sort of systems are more efficient. Those who are open about like their mistakes, their externalities, their costs, or those who are closed about them. Those who are open towards criticism, or those who are closed towards criticism. Like the faction of the right that constructs a boogeyman out of open society, they think that, well, it basically means that you've got open borders. It basically means that, like, you've got like transgender sex every single day, that you're all high on drugs. They have a very sort of weird understanding of it that, I mean, I don't share this understanding at all. And obviously I don't think that we should have open borders, or that I'm actually like more socially conservative in terms of my morality. So I'm also anti-LGBTQ, at least in the way that it is.
Really, why is that, if you don't mind me asking? Because I know you're an atheist, and in my mind, the only good reason to say that gay people shouldn't be allowed to have sex with whoever they want is this sort of, because God said so, which I don't believe in. I have no problem with homosexuality and all that. So what's your thinking there?
So I have actually a 40-minute video on that on my YouTube. It's called like the non-heterosexual environment, but I do spend some portion of my time dissing like this whole phenomenon. And so for me, this is like, I don't view the LGBTQ in isolation. So for me, there's sexual promiscuity and sort of sexual disorganization. LGBTQ is just one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is women being out of control. You've got children out of wedlock. You've got multiple partners. My belief is that homosexuality and even transsexuality is natural. My belief is that you can't stop it. Like, and I mean, I don't want to legislate like away their rights for their own bodily autonomy.
Likewise.
Yeah, but at the same time, there is a correlation with mental illnesses. There is a correlation with antisocial behavior, and my solution to it would be eventual genetic engineering to screen out for these like transgender and gay sort of inclinations and select them out of the gene pool.
Dude, it's so over for my channel. Hosting you is like I'm just getting nuked.
No, I mean, and look, it's like there's just no way for me not to see it as a form of a dead weight from a biological evolutionary standpoint. Like, I'm not even against gay marriage necessarily. I don't really have an opinion about gay marriage. The good positive thing about gay marriage is that, well, at least these people, well, first won't pass on their genes, and second, they won't cheat on their spouses with like a person of their gender. And I think that's a very important thing, because I do remember reading a diary of like this woman who had like a gay husband, and she would complain how he would cheat on her with men, right? And you don't want to have that, because that's a dysfunctional family unit, right? And so you want to get rid of it, but you also want to get rid of like the sort of things that some straight people have, like ADHD, like schizophrenia. I don't come from it from a religious perspective. I come from it from a right-wing progressive perspective. And if these people want to be on my side and like advocate for this ideology, I'd gladly welcome them. So I don't hold prejudice.
Yeah, so my thoughts on this, I am not all that socially conservative, but when it comes to what kind of environment I want children to be raised in, I'm like, 1950s Baptist fundamentalist. Like, I believe in stable family units. And so I'm socially conservative insofar as is necessary to protect that. But when it comes to gay people, I think the best thing for them is to, like you said, to be in a stable marriage with someone they actually love, instead of trapped in a loveless marriage with a woman, and then that just leads to cheating and all that. So
I agree with you, but there is also one big
Yeah.
caveat. The biggest like proportion of gay people are bisexual. So there are strictly homosexual people, and they're 2 to 3% of the population. It seems to be stable. But bisexuals, they're like 15 to 20% of the population. And you also have transsexuals or transgenders, who used to be about 0% of the population. Now, if you look at my generation, it's about 2% of my generation are transgenders. And I would have not expected this in 2000, and like when I first started thinking about it in the mid 2010s. Before that, I had no idea they have even existed. But now, like after seeing such an explosive growth, when their proportion has increased, I think fivefold in the past 10 years, I would say that's a big problem. And number one, and number two, bisexuals, vast majority of them will settle for a person of their opposite gender, and they would have kids with them. And some of these kids, I would assume, a lot of them grow up to be like or gay or bisexual or transgender.
It's certainly true that the amount of transgenders has skyrocketed, but of course the counter argument would be that they've always existed and they've just been coming out of the closet at a higher rate more recently. So maybe that 2% number is actually the natural rate.
The argument, that's essentially the argument for left-handedness, right? People came out of the closet, blah blah blah. But the thing with left-handedness is that there was no statistical difference in terms of generation. Here we've got a very large statistical difference, intergenerational, and it's not like trans women or trans men don't necessarily decide to transition at age 30 or at age 40. Here we see like almost an algorithmic increase from the boomer generation to generation Z for every each of these behaviors. And I would say that there are two things to blame for this. One of it is, perhaps three. I mean, perhaps something is biological that is going on. I don't rule that at all. Perhaps something in the water. I mean, I don't know exactly, but there may be a biological reason for it. But the second thing is culture, and because culture impacts every generation almost equally, I would not rate it as that important. But the third thing is probably porn. So there are generational differences as to what kind of porn each generation is consuming, right? And for example, the gay and trans coded porn is not particularly boomer coded, but guess what is boomer coded? Like cuckoldry, for example, is and that gives you some things to think about, because the sexual sort of I believe the sexual is the our subconscious manifestation of our inner self, and so
it's the id coming to the forefront.
Yeah, I do believe in it. I do believe that your sexual orientation has to do with your personality. It's a reflection of your personality. I don't, believe in this, I guess, fairy tale that a person has this certain public persona, but in bed he's a completely different person. I don't believe in that. I believe that it's one and the same, and perhaps if they're repressed, then it's different, but that's because they're repressed. A healthy person, and I would say a regular person, their personality and their, I guess, sexual manifestations are going to correlate very strongly.
I mean, I think that if you have a more feminine personality just in your default temperament, that's going to manifest in you being more attracted to the masculine, which is why, on average, lesbians tend to be a little more masculine than most women, and gay guys tend to be a little more feminine than most men. I'm not sure if I'm sold on the idea that transgenderism is caused by pornography. I think that's plausible, but I just don't know. I mean, there's also the distinction between do you know the Hus versus ATG or AGT? You know what I'm talking about?
Autogenophilia, and the first one is what?
Okay, this might take some explanation. There's a guy named Dr. Ray Blanchard, who's a researcher of human sexuality. He's most well known for Blanchard's transsexual typology. His research led him to believe that there were two types of trans women, and it's only by their outward appearance that we call them the same thing. The first type is the autogynephiliac, or AGP. AGPs are males who experience sexual arousal at the idea of having a female body. The act of changing a male into a female, or being a female with a penis having sex with other females, turns them on. The second is the homosexual transsexual, or the HSTS, pronounced as Hus in the meme. These people are almost exclusively attracted to men. They are maximally feminine in behavior and appearance. They have no interest in being male whatsoever, and they basically only want to take on a feminine gender role and bottom for a masculine man. Blanchard's typology is considered highly controversial, even transphobic within the trans community. At the same time though, there is very clearly a difference between trans women who want to be and trans women who, if they could magically become cis women and have periods and be some dude's wife and have his kids, they would absolutely do that. Blanchard seems to be correct when he says that these two things are not the same thing, and that we call them both trans women just out of convention. Blanchardism has become this meta-meme in the online trans community. There's a half-serious joke out there about how HSTS women are the only true trans women, while AGPs are these disgusting fetishists, these men who disguise themselves as women. And there's this tendency to go on AGP witch hunts to try and sniff out any sort of male-brained behavior.
AGP, 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 AGP.
So it's basically, yeah, autogynephilia is one, and that's like, you want to become a woman out of like a perverse sexual thing. And then tuss is just you genuinely think of yourself in a feminine way. So I think it's possible that the first is caused by pornography, and the second might be more of a genetic thing. It could be like a type 1, type 2 diabetes thing.
Completely agree. That's exactly right. And like, it's not just transgenderism. Usually transgenderism is like the second stage of this manifestation. The first stage is like femboy stuff, and I forgot there was this, I guess, streamer or YouTuber, I don't know, who like used to dress up as a woman, and then he transitioned. I forgot who he was. Have no idea, but he had millions of followers.
Oh, is it Philosophy Tube?
Oh no, it's not Philosophy Tube. Well, I mean, it is Philosophy Tube, but I was talking about somebody else.
There's also that Mr. Beast friend.
No, not this guy. No.
Okay.
Yeah, it's but he was like a Sneeko equivalent, I would say, or like Asmongold equivalent. Very big.
That sort of like low IQ space of the internet that subsists off of just like reacting to the news of the day.
Yeah, and
kind of
earn a lot of
mediums.
money from it in the process.
Lots of money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, more money than us with our like data-driven autistic analysis.
Yeah. I mean, I tweeted the other day that maybe I should ban Shapiro Max and like do reaction videos as opposed to doing what I'm doing now, and I'm seriously considering, because on on Twitter I have really exploded, and that's because I'm posting like complete degenerate slop every single day, and I'm getting lots of followers for it.
Might be the move. I mean, maybe the strategy is to like do that for a couple years, build up an audience, and then like hone in on the high IQ content.
I don't think that Sneeko is a high IQ person, and I don't watch him, but he, like his older self, certainly was a lot more dumber than whatever he's doing now. Although, I mean, like, I cringe every time I watch him. But it's gotten a lot better.
Yeah.
So
Islam is based in red pill, bro. Trust me. The West just needs to become Muslim. That's how we're gonna save ourselves from the feminists and the gays that are destroying everything.
I really liked his, and I don't really like Islam, but his video on like going to Mecca and how it related to like his father and Malcolm X. That thing I liked, and it gave a lot of thoughts, but I still don't agree with him. But as I said, I do believe his content has gotten better after he started spending his time with Nick Fuentes.
That's an interesting,
for example,
group that you got the Zerka. I don't know if he still hangs around with them. And then Clav is now part of that group. So it's a wild sphere. Gen Z is just crazy.
I forgot who Zerka was.
I think he's Armenian. He used to be a bar security guy, and he was like, he converted to Christianity. He calls himself high testosterone, low IQ. Like he's very much just that like beefy right-wing fella. But yeah, he used to hop on the Fuentes streams back in the day, back in the OG days before before the normies all started watching
Yeah, I don't. He must have felt out of my view, because last time I heard anything about him was probably 2024.
it. Yeah, it's been a while since I watched that stuff.
At least last time I
Yeah,
paid
yeah.
attention.
On the question of mental illness rates with gay people, that's definitely true. I would be curious though to see, and maybe you know this data, if that is declining over time as they become more integrated into normal bourgeois middle class society. Because that was kind of the pitch with the whole gay rights thing, was like, you know, right now, because we discriminate against them, they're this like wacky subculture. They're very degenerate. They do a lot of drugs, and it's unhealthy. Let's bring them into the mainstream and make it so that they're just normal guys with normal jobs and normal families. And I certainly know a lot of people like that, and they're, they don't, as far as I know, have particularly bad mental health. They're often fairly right wing in their social views. They become normal. So I wonder if that's an inevitable process that will just continue until that disproportionate mental illness no longer exists.
If that were true, then their mental illness wouldn't have exploded in the later half of 2010s. If you look at their mental illness rates from prior to 2010s, they were a lot more healthier than they are now, or they were 5 years ago. So we do see an increase in their mental illnesses rates, whereas where they were discriminated against more often, for example, 20 years ago, they were actually a lot more healthier than they are now. And that's an interesting paradox. My guess is that, large part of it, a portion of it is environmentally driven, and a large portion of that environmental drive is the lifestyle that they're living, promiscuity, unprotected sex, and the other aspect is their left-wing ideology, because vast majority of, there are right-wing gay people, of course, but the vast majority of them, just like the vast majority of Jews, lean left. Unless they're in Germany, where they're voting for AfD.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Although I'd be curious to try and disentangle that from the general mental health crisis, because I have a feeling that everyone's mental health took a down spiral.
But it impacts them worse than it impacts the rest of us. So there is something about them that's making them more prone to mental illness, and I don't believe it is discrimination. Like for example, if you look at, I'm every day on Twitter, and and every day I'm being like called a bad word. Usually it's because of my like ethnic background, and like people are threatening me and they're saying all kinds of mean things. That doesn't impact my mental health at all, because like I don't care. And a lot of gay people, I think they're similar to me in this particular regard. And I do remember like interacting with a couple of them and seeing them interact with other people, and when these other people tried to shame them or tried to say that they were inferior, these gay people, they didn't look that they were offended. On the contrary, they were combative, and they were unashamed, and they didn't appear to like, it didn't appear that they were suffering from like repression or anything that the gay people of the older generation have gone through and suffered.
Well, yeah, because at this point, the bigots are like on the back foot. Like they're the minority. I don't know if that's statistically true, but at least the people who are vocal inherently rude to gay people are a small percentage of the population, and they're laughed at by mainstream
Yes.
society.
Yes.
So, you know, if you're a gay guy and some like random hick
Yeah.
is like, "Oh, you're gay," it's like, okay, who cares? You can just laugh at him.
And precisely because of that, I don't think it impacts their mental health. And I'm similar in this respect, because the people who are hating me because of my ethnicity, they're also a small percentage of the population. But if they were a large percentage of the population,
You feel
maybe,
different.
yeah, I would probably feel different.
What is your ethnic background?
Russian and Jewish.
Okay, based. I'm pretty sure that there's some Jewish DNA in my background.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure exactly. Okay, so yeah, that explains your fixation with IQ. Okay, so in
Actually,
that case,
you know how I came to IQ? I was studying psychology. I was mostly studying developmental psychology. I was initially like a fan of Howard Gardner, the theory like how your IQ is like mostly environmental. So I initially started from this position, and then I evolved, where I am now. Uh, but yeah, I don't think that like ethnicity didn't. I don't think ethnicity played a role in me accepting IQ. Actually, if
I was
you
just trolling you.
yeah, if you look at Sean Last wrote an article. So people who have a Jewish parent, they're actually less likely to believe that IQ is primarily genetic. They're more sort of believers in environmentalism. So, like, if anything, I would have that would precisely not explain why I believe in what I believe in.
Right. It's kind of funny how the people at the top of the genetic totem pole, there's kind of like a weird paradox here where it's like the affluent New England Jewish or Anglo people, they're the ones who don't think there's anything special about that. It's
Yeah,
because a lot of
that's
times they live in a bubble and that's all they know is
yeah,
this like
yeah.
if you go to the deep south or something where people are much lower on the IQ totem pole, they're much more likely to believe in it.
I'm not entirely sure about it, especially when you control for a generation, like especially now. What I have seen from the survey of IQ, like psychometricians, people who are more like who have greater knowledge in this sorts of stuff, tend to believe that IQ is primarily biological, whereas people who have very little knowledge tend to believe it's mostly environmental. So, but perhaps that's only among experts. Perhaps like the general observation that you have made with regards to the general population maybe is right. Although
Yeah, that's
I'm
more what
not
I'm
totally
thinking
sure.
is, if you talk
Hmm.
to some random guy on the street in North Carolina, uh, he's more likely to say
Yeah.
like, oh, yeah, there might be some genetic differences than if you talk to some random person on the street in Rhode Island. At least that's my intuition. But yeah, I mean, that's the danger with me saying that is that it turns into this like anti-elitist, horseshoe theory of practical intelligence. The poor dumb people are actually right about everything.
Hmm.
That's obviously not true. The experts are in fact based, as you
Hmm.
said. The people who are actually in the field doing
Yeah.
IQ research uh, agree with us, which is crazy. I don't think many people know that. That's esoteric knowledge. Most people would assume that academia in general is so far bought into the egalitarian consensus that they would never say something like that. But but yeah, as you said, the data bears out that most experts in IQ research think it's largely genetic. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. It's been a great conversation. You should all go subscribe to Ubersoy. You should subscribe to me down below. The key takeaways here are that the open society is good. Liberalism, democracy are good so long as you constrain them. You know, the boomers were right, actually. They just didn't quite take it to the next step. So we are the inevitable culmination, the apotheosis of John Locke, of the founding fathers. It all comes together with us. So yeah, epistocracy forever, flankers forever. Thank you guys for watching. Peace out.